Hello. So I normally wouldn't make a video like this, but I want to get a bit meta and talk about YouTube. I'm gonna just sort of rant about the platform and go over stuff about being a YouTuber, etc. If you're subscribed because you like to watch my video essays and stuff, then yeah. Fair warning, this probably won't interest you too much. I'm gonna split this into different sections that each cover different things, and each section is gonna be timestamped in case one doesn't interest you or whatever and you want to skip it. So here goes. Breadtube. The idea that there was this sort of YouTube subgenre called Breadtube first cropped up in around late 2018 and early 2019, around the time when I myself was getting started on YouTube. It was originally a label applied by viewers to a few very popular creators who were perceived as making left-leaning content, namely ContraPoints, HBomberGuy, Sean, PhilosophyTube, and a few others. Those creators never actually called themselves Breadtube, though there was a wave of new creators who did. At the time, among this audience, there was a huge amount of excitement and optimism, as people seemed to believe that making content on YouTube was a sort of very important political action in order to counter the far-right's presence on the platform. There were even profiles in the mainstream media of some of the aforementioned big creators, describing them as if they were incredibly important missionaries in the struggle against fascism. The keyword there is believed. This is what some creators believe about themselves, and what a lot of viewers believe about them. And I don't actually think that this belief is really true. I think it's much more a case of a political audience kind of having a tendency to ascribe special practical importance to the content that they enjoy. It enhances the experience for many if they believe that the content that they're watching is not simply entertainment with a political bent, but rather that it's actually making a real, significant difference in the world. A sort of replacement for actually going out and taking meaningful action themselves. I'm not going to go super in depth on this because there's more stuff that I want to cover in this video, but not going super in depth is probably going to make it seem like I'm downplaying things that I don't mean to. So I just want to note that yes, the far right is a real threat in the USA, and everything that I'm about to say is completely compatible with that acknowledgement. Okay, point 1. If someone can be convinced that fascism is actually bad by a 50-minute long ContraPoints video, then they were actually just kind of an extremely online, probably teenage/early 20s white guy who just discovered Chan boards and who would probably be changing their ideology every 2 months anyway. Those with actually deep-seated, less fleeting beliefs take a whole lot more to be de-radicalized than just watching some YouTube videos. 2. There's infinitely more people out there who are just like normal. This group of normal people is also crucially important to enacting any sort of meaningful change. Yet for some reason, everyone instead focused on saving a bunch of fascist white boy shut-ins. Okay, it's not just for some reason. It's because they're an enemy that a much wider audience, from left-wingers to centrists to even some right-wingers, can all rally against. While talking about real systemic change, especially economic, would alienate the centrists and the right-wingers. It's all about making content that appeals to as wide of a demographic as possible. It's also, relatively speaking, quite easy to convince someone that hatred is bad, while convincing them that capitalism is bad is quite a bit more complicated, if that's even a thing that these creators would want to do. Thirdly, I 100% guarantee you that if every single person who claims to have been de-radicalized by YouTube never actually saw these videos, never actually watched these streams, etc., literally everything about the world would be the exact same as it is right now. This is simply inconsequential. Fourthly, this is also really singularly US focused. It really kind of blows my mind that people who claim to be left-leaning, who live in a country that's actively murdering or abetting the murder of countless foreigners every single day, that's orchestrated and supported multiple fascist coups against left-leaning governments in just the last few years, have the audacity to act like some nightmare scenario where fascists literally seize state power in the USA is the most pressing issue facing humanity. The US already does everything elsewhere that they fear that these fascists would do in the US. yet that doesn't even register for them. The reason for the hyper emphasis on this group for quote unquote Breadtube was much less about real political change in the real world, as it was for enhancing the viewing experience. Pointless dunk number 8 million on Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson is no longer just pointless dunk 11 million. It's anti-fascism, it's de-radicalization, it's real politics. So I don't think it's really any surprise that all of this very quickly expanded to be this idea that in general, consuming and supporting left-wing branded political content alongside creating it is some sort of new political movement. Viewers, and in some cases even the creators themselves, seem quite reluctant to accept that this is really just politically branded entertainment, which is almost entirely preaching to the choir at that. But it needs to be imagined as something that's way more, because for a lot of people, that actually seems to be a big part of the appeal. This has also led to some viewers seeing the creators as if they were like political messiahs, where the important part of the content is no longer its substance, no longer the content itself, but rather the simple fact that it's made by this one specific person. This ideal of the creator becomes paramount. There's a lot that's been said about parasocial relationships, and they're not in any way unique to this sector of YouTube at all. But I feel like the political aspect really adds another dimension to it. People kind of convince themselves into believing that by, say, monetarily supporting a creator, they're contributing to some sort of real-world change, rather than just like helping that creator pay their bills, or in many cases, just adding a little bit more to their already sizable bank accounts. Creators are considered by some in their fan bases to be like real political thought leaders, rather than just the entertainers who they are. I'm not excluding myself here at all either. I sometimes get comments, for example, telling me how important my work is, or people saying that they don't really care what I make, they'll just like it because it's from me. Some creators who are naive or egotistical enough to buy into their own hype might like to see that kind of feedback. But I don't. I want my content to stand up on its own. That's why I craft it in a way that's about as dry and devoid of personality as it can reasonably be, with each video simply getting straight to the topic and staying on that topic the whole way through, with me, myself, and whatever my experiences are, or whoever I am as a person, mostly irrelevant to that. Yet I still get those sorts of comments. So you can't really win, can you? Particularly on YouTube and Twitch, this seems to be a core part of the experience for a lot of people. And I think this can be a very negative thing, especially combined with the sorts of cults of personality that crop up around certain creators, and the idea that their content and viewing it and supporting it, etc., is political action. So hey, look, be careful not to get too into your politically branded media consumption. This content, my own included, is a product, and you are a consumer. Sure, you may find it educational and interesting, but that doesn't make it not a product that is being put on your screen by people who are entertainers, whose primary goal, whether they will admit it or not, is not to spur meaningful political change, but to just make a living for themselves. Or sometimes even to get filthy goddamn rich. Of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, unless they themselves present it as something more. I guess the takeaway then is that so-called Breadtube is really just a descriptor for a demographic, which unfortunately seems to do quite a bit of self-gaslighting, and one that generally doesn't seem very interested in real political change, rather just the vibe of it. Hence the fixation with relatively safe creators who very rarely, if ever, express any real radical sentiments, and thus are very, very palatable to pretty much anyone who isn't right-wing, or even some people who are. Hence why so many of these people turned on Sean, who was once one of their pillars, simply because he refused to outright come out and urge people to vote for Joe Biden of the US Democratic Party. Seriously, people were demanding that he outright say that like it was some sort of fucking loyalty oath. Kneel and pledge yourself to Joe, swine. And I'm not exaggerating there at all. That was literally it. That was it. That was all that it took. Very revealing about how radical the Breadtube viewer base actually is. What about me though? Am I a part of Breadtube? Well, I certainly branded myself like I was back when I got started, back before I kind of realized what it really was. And that's how I got a lot of my initial audience. But there is very little about my channel that's left that's much like so-called Breadtube anymore. I cover a very broad range of topics far outside of the scope of the domestic US and UK politics, which that demographic unfortunately seems to pretty much solely care about. I actually engage in class-based and material analysis. I don't sugarcoat things so as not to go too far and offend the sensibilities of the liberals in the audience. I do not act like capitalism with some welfare programs is the end-all be-all of politics. You're not gonna hear much about that from a traditional sort of Breadtube video. Now don't get me wrong, I do absolutely watch some so-called Breadtube myself, but I simply enjoy it for what it is. It's not a core part of the experience for me that I imagine it to be more than simple entertainment. As an aside here, I'm obviously biased in my video essays. My political leanings are no secret to anyone, but I try to regulate that bias and be about as objective as a biased person, also called literally every single human being, can possibly be. I never go in thinking like, I'm gonna try to twist this in a left-wing sort of way no matter what, or I'm gonna tell these people exactly what they want to hear. So anyway, my stuff might be kind of similar to Breadtube stuff because it does structurally simply conform to a lot of the norms of the platform. But I still wouldn't consider myself to be a part of Breadtube specifically. And for that matter, the way that the term has been used to cover basically anyone on YouTube who has a bad thing to say about the right wing is kind of worthless. I think that Sphere, which initially branded itself as sort of the countercurrent on YouTube, actually pretty much immediately became a part of YouTube's mainstream, which I don't think should be a surprise to anyone at all. The market for progressive sort of branded woke but not too radical content that simultaneously can appeal to a wide audience from center to left is simply huge, especially in the younger demographics of like teenagers, people in their 20s and 30s, etc., who are also much more likely to be viewing more YouTube content, getting involved in creator fandoms, etc. And I find it kinda weird that people ever manage to convince themselves otherwise. Okay, enough of that. Next topic. Debate streaming. Okay, so just to get it out of the way, so I never need to acknowledge it ever again, let's talk about debate streaming, which is extremely related to everything that I just said about the idea of content as political action, and especially to the hyper-focus on the creator themselves rather than the substance of their work. In fact, I think it's by far the worst of it. So I think the reason that debate streaming initially got so popular so fast was simply because it fed off a pre-existing demographic of, well, gamers. People who were interested in competitive multiplayer online games and the communities surrounding them. This is pretty obvious, I think, because the first big debate streamer who basically popularized it had already been popular for years because he basically just acted like a 12-year-old on Xbox Live while playing video games and streaming them. And most of the big-name political debate streamers and much of their initial audiences also come directly from that sphere. And in coming from that sphere, they also brought with them a lot of the things that are sort of characteristic of it. You know, online gaming doesn't exactly have a reputation for being a bastion of like sportsmanship and honest engagement, and debate streaming has inherited all of the worst of that, along with a very strong dose of toxic masculinity. So for them, the whole online gaming owning your opponents thing usually comes far before the actual politics, far before any real desire to actually learn or whatever. And that goes as much for the creators as their audiences. There's a lot that's been said about the potential usefulness of this sort of debate as a spectacle in of itself. Sarah Z has a very good video arguing that it's not very useful, for example, with her reasoning mostly being because the goal is always primarily to win more than to reach the truth. But even if we give the concept the benefit of the doubt and assume that it can actually be a good way to cover a political issue or whatever, it's abundantly clear that the political debate streamer sphere doesn't approach it in that way at all. As their video game origins might suggest, it's all about winning. It's about totally owning your opponent. It's about them as an individual, as a personality, being better, far above whatever the topic happens to be. In this vein, it basically takes all of the problems that I outlined about people putting personality over substance and turns them up to 11. Because in debate streaming, it's not just the audience making it all about the creator. The creator is also doing that. They themselves are the content more than anything else, and they know it. It's not like they try to hide it. I mean, some of them have even taken to advertising their streams as if they're like wrestling matches, and title their videos stuff like, "Seething Tanky gives best Joker impression as I employ sneaky debate tactic." Take a look at how stupid my opponent is and how much smarter than him I am as I employ my sneaky debate tactic to totally own. The issues at hand are tertiary at best. What's actually important is that I made him mad with my strategic prowess. Of course, you could say that that title is tongue-in-cheek. And yeah, the intention there is that it's kind of jokingly exaggerating the content of the video. But I mean, that's still true. It's exactly what the creator really does think is happening in that video. It's exactly what they aim to do with their content in general, and it is exactly what the audience wants to see from them. So whether it's intended as satire or not, the reality is that the title is just honest. And you know, I mean, that's fine if you enjoy watching online debate streams, if you enjoy watching your favorite streamer totally own their opponents, you know, more power to you, that's great. Good for you. In the same way that there's nothing wrong with like watching your favorite tennis player win games or whatever. The difference is though, the tennis player doesn't present themselves as some sort of political maestro, and their matches as proof that their political opinions are the correct ones. So of course, many people end up taking debate streams as being way more than simply a spectacle where they watch the streamer who they like totally owning his opponents. No, for them, this is doing politics. This streamer is a political thought leader who is basically leading a movement, and through watching him, they are a part of this movement. Through sending him super chats, they are a part of this movement, etc. And hell, while you're at it, why not just straight up adopt all of his opinions as your own? This is even worse than it is in the fan bases of the creators who I outlined in the Breadtube part, as those creators don't center themselves in their content to anywhere near this extent. Because these streamers really do seem to conceive of themselves as their audience does. They love it actually, and they encourage their viewers to do so more. Some have even outright stated that they believe that they are personally building a movement. It's honestly absurd that people whose content catalog is like 90% stuff like, "I totally own this guy in a debate because I am so smart and great," or talking about random Twitter drama while I play video games, legitimately seem to believe that sort of thing about themselves. The problem here is not really any one individual. The very nature of debate streaming, especially combined with its origins in online gamer culture, would have always resulted in something similar. Even if there existed a debate streamer who was a really smart and swell guy with amazing knowledge on literally every topic ever, and who was genuinely interested solely in honest engagement, you'd still end up with a personality cult purely due to the nature of the format, as it naturally puts a hyper-focus on the creator themselves and their supposed ability to beat others at the forefront, with whatever political topics they happen to cover being little more than background noise. And if you want proof of that, well, just look towards the armies of people who spend like basically every waking hour of their day defending their favorite streamer online, no matter how stupid whatever they said was, or no matter how awful it was. It very much reminds me of Jordan Peterson fans actually, with their, this is taken out of context every single time he says something stupid. So as I also said about videos, this is just politically themed entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that in of itself. Every single little thing to do with politics doesn't have to be effective political action, but it does become a bit problematic when the creators and the fans see it as way more than that, and especially when the creators very, very actively encourage that idea among their fan base. This is also a very, very lucrative business. The people who do this often make a lot of money from it, which comes mostly from direct donations from their fans, and I really mean a lot. Like enough that some of them are basically running businesses at this point, with employees under them, etc. And again, all of this is based on income that comes from people donating, with a lot of them genuinely seeming to believe that their donation or support on Patreon or Twitch subscription or whatever legitimately is going to make a difference in something. So that makes it actually kind of intentionally exploitative. Again, I'm going to get further into the money aspect soon, but first, streaming versus edited videos. That last section was specifically about like political debate streaming, Twitter drama streaming, and stuff like that. Not all streaming, okay? Streaming in general is fine, obviously. I watch streams sometimes myself. So please don't take this part as an attack on streaming itself. It's rather just more to do with the sort of YouTube made a game. God, YouTube made a game. What am I doing with my life? Streaming is obviously a very different beast from making edited videos. One is quite off the cuff, relaxed, low pressure, etc. And the other requires a lot of concentrated effort to produce a very precise and carefully crafted end result. You could stream and spend an hour covering a topic, but that has no chance of really being anywhere near as good as if you were to spend like 2 weeks to a month producing an edited video that covers that same topic. The advantage to streaming is obviously though that while you can't really cover something with the same sort of depth, you can cover way more topics in an infinitely shorter time frame without really putting in a smidgen of the effort. And YouTube as a platform doesn't really care if a video is a 1 hour long deep dive into a topic or just a 1 hour long stream clip casually covering that same topic. The algorithm is going to push both of those out to viewers as if they were equal, which is a problem for the creator who makes the edited videos, as they probably spent weeks upon weeks or even more than a month making theirs, while the streamer just streamed, took a clip from it, and then uploaded it. It's like 2 hours of low intensity work versus like 200 plus hours of very, very high intensity work. And both nonetheless still end up with relatively similar potential on the platform. Like, I don't know if it's the same for everyone else, but my YouTube recommendations are not full of video essays. They're full of stream clips. And it's kind of weird because I never actually watch stream clips. And this is because streaming is kind of taking over and more people are catching on to how it is. If you stream, not only do you, well, stream, meaning that you make money off super chats, subscriptions from Twitch, YouTube memberships, etc. But you can also go and upload clips afterwards and maintain an entire YouTube channel solely off those clips, which is going to give you a ton of ad revenue, expand your audience greatly, etc. And you're uploading a 30-minute long video every day or every other day, while someone making edited content could only do that like once or twice a month. So the YouTube algorithm is going to love you and your videos since you upload so many of them so often and they're so long, and due to the latter, they can display more mid-roll ads, and thus make a ton more ad revenue relative to a shorter video. For example, my most recent video essay took me about 3 weeks to make, probably 200 hours or so of work, and it's 80 minutes long, it's gotten 60,000 views, and it's made about $200 from ads. That's a relatively high amount of ad revenue for a video with this view count, and that's because its length means that you can put like 4 or 5 mid-roll ads in there, and people will be okay with it. When, you know, if you put 4 or 5 mid-roll ads into like a 15-minute long video, people would hate you, and rightfully so. Now imagine that, unlike me, who can only really upload 1 or 2 videos a month, you were able to put out 30-minute plus videos every single day. Suddenly, you'd be making a whole lot more money. And that's exactly what streamers can do, and it's all on top of the streaming part too. And it's not just that either. Uploading longish videos that frequently means that rather than just having 1 or 2 videos that the algorithm might show to people, you're gonna have like 20 plus. So your videos will be pushed out to far more new viewers, and your channel is going to grow way faster as a result. And in turn, that's going to get your stream more new viewers as well. There's so many feedback loops going on here that all combine to make streaming such a fantastic option compared to making edited videos. And on top of all of that, for the creator, streaming is so much lower pressure, lower stress, and lower effort overall. Sure, streamers definitely do put a lot of hours in, but those hours are not exactly high intensity labor. Whereas to make an edited video, you need to be highly concentrated and basically do the work of like multiple skilled professionals. You're your own researcher, your own scriptwriter, your own cameraman, your own audio engineer, your own editor, etc. It's much higher effort in comparison, and it comes with a much smaller reward, all in the name of quality over quantity. You might think that I'm just being a bit of video essayist here, and sure, maybe, definitely, but I only really thought about this in the first place because some people who do both of these things, that is, making edited videos and streaming, talked about this before me. For example, Dark Viper AU, who both makes edited videos and streams video game speedruns, so relatively high intensity stuff as far as streaming goes, said this.
I am both a YouTuber and a Twitch streamer, and I do make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I'm very blessed to be in the situation that I'm in. I got lucky, but I'll tell you this right now. Streaming is so much easier than making YouTube videos. Actual YouTube videos. Edited original content, original jokes, keyframing shit, sitting on my ass, reacting to shit is so easy. If all I had to do was stream, my life would be like at least 80% easier. As much as I stream, I still look at streaming as so much easier than YouTube. Sitting on my ass for 12 hours at my computer, just editing on stream or playing a video game, especially a chill one. I can do that in a heartbeat. Editing pacifist percent, I get sweat thinking about how strenuous that is gonna be. There's like 3 edits that I have to do, and I've put off making that video for like a month just because I don't want to do them because I know how difficult they will be. I have spent 9 months trying to get through GTA 5 without taking any damage. 9 months. And I still think that's easier than making a single episode of Pacifist Percent. Every person sitting at their computer for long durations of time is not putting in the same effort for what they're creating.
Yeah, that's basically just completely spot on. Perfect. I don't need to add anything at all. Now don't get me wrong here, I like what I do, but it feels a bit weird sometimes to put like a month's worth of effort into a video, making it as perfect as I possibly can, and getting like 40,000 views. But a streamer with the same subscriber base as me could have streamed and uploaded like 20 videos of similar length in that same time frame, and even if maybe individually they wouldn't get the same amount of views as my one video, combined they would very easily get at least 5 times more. And they would also be reaching way more potential new subscribers on top of all of the other benefits that come with streaming. And they'd easily be making like 3 times my income without putting in anywhere near as much effort. A while back on YouTube, it was actually pretty labor intensive if you wanted to say release a video every single day. Casey Neistat, for example, would go out for hours filming every single day, get home in the night, and somehow put together a 5 to 10 minute, pristinely edited narrative vlog all in one day, almost every single day. Now, streamers can put out 30-minute plus videos every single day without any of that effort put into them. You can just like casually read and give commentary on the news, watch an edited video that someone else put effort into, and pause it every 30 seconds to react, or yell at some random 12-year-old who challenged you to a debate on Twitter, and then upload the clip of that, which will easily be 20 minutes long, at least. One is not only far easier to do and far less labor intensive, but it also comes with a much higher reward. Now don't worry here, I'm not going to be changing anything, I'm not quitting, nothing like that at all. This is just sort of an informative rant that will maybe give viewers some insight into the sort of content creator metagame. As I'm sure you guys don't really think about it that much because why would you? And maybe even some creators don't either. I do, however, have a Twitch channel now over on twitch.tv/badempanada, so go follow me there, now. But it's unlikely that I'm going to be using it very often, or maybe even not at all. And if I ever do, it's very doubtful that I'm going to take it very seriously. And if you go over there and follow me, you'll get a notification if I ever actually do go live. Yay. Creators make a whole lot of money. Something very related to every single thing that I've talked about in this video is that creators tend to make a whole lot of money. A lot more than they tend to let on, too. Some bigger creators actually like to hide how much they make, something which I honestly find a bit suspect. I think that they suspect that some people would be less inclined to send them money if they knew exactly how much they were actually making already. So that's a bit manipulative, isn't it? Anyway, let me try to give you an idea of how much they make. Right now, I make $1,418 a month on Patreon, with 383 patrons. That means that the average pledge on my Patreon is $3.70 per month. Let's go over to ContraPoints' Patreon, since she's both considered Breadtube and, as far as I know, has the biggest Patreon for an individual YouTuber out of everyone. Right now, she has about 13,500 patrons. If she makes at least as much as me per patron, in reality I think she probably makes more, since her tiers start at $3 while mine start at $1, then she's making $50,000 a month from Patreon alone, not counting anything else. Now, I'm sure that she puts a lot of money back into her videos and pays the people who work with her, etc. But as someone who has intimate insight into this stuff, no, it's not anywhere near that much, okay? She's making bank, basically, and all from putting out like 5 videos total every year. Then there's someone like PhilosophyTube. PhilosophyTube has around 8,000 patrons, which, using the same estimate, would net her about $30,000 a month. However, PhilosophyTube works on a very consistent schedule. She also very clearly invests a lot of money into her monthly videos. She hires a whole damn professional production company, for example. Whatever you think of her politics or her arguments, etc., her maintenance of such a strict schedule is nonetheless impressive, and basically exactly what viewers should expect from a creator who they support. So there's 2 different sorts of Patreons there. On ContraPoints', people are just kind of funding her life, and every now and again she might bless them with a video. And I find that kind of problematic. I feel like a lot of people are giving money to someone who's already like way richer than they are. She probably makes more in a month than most of them make in a year, and she doesn't even remotely need 80% of that money for her work, and they very occasionally get a video in return, which they could also have just watched anyway without giving her a cent. PhilosophyTube, however, operates like someone who is actually getting paid to make videos, like someone who has a job. A video every month. Simple. If that's something that she feels she can't do alone, then she spares no expense in getting the help that she needs to make sure that she can. One of these people clearly respects their supporters and sees themselves as a content creator who is being paid to make videos, rather than simply for being whoever the audience imagines them to be. The other, well, who knows? But certainly not that. Now, I obviously know absolutely nothing about ContraPoints' personal life, and I don't want to speculate. You know, maybe she's struggling, maybe she has some problem that makes her unable to work all the time, etc. But still, she does not need $50,000 a month to do what she does while still leading a comfortable life. And yet tons of people who are no doubt not living lives that are anywhere near as comfortable are nonetheless giving her money. Obviously, it's not like she's forcing them to donate or coercing them into donating or anything like that, but I still find this very concerning. It's a really excellent example of some of the potential problems of people kind of idolizing internet personalities that I outlined in the first section. And I haven't even talked about streamers yet. A dedicated streamer with the same follower count as ContraPoints would easily make like 2, 3, 4 times more than her. So yeah, creators actually make a whole lot more money than most people think. A YouTuber with 100k subscribers and a Patreon can easily make enough money to invest back into their content while living comfortably, even in most places in wealthy countries like the USA or Australia or whatever. A streamer could do the same with 50k followers, or maybe even less. And from there, well, anything on top is just disposable income. So please, think about that before you send your favorite streamer a super chat. I definitely think that there's a point where creators are making so much money from people giving it to them directly, like through Patreon, super chats, Twitch subscriptions, etc., where, especially as a supposedly leftist political creator, you should probably start being open with your audience. Tell them that you already make a ton of money and not to give you more if they need it more than you. Or at the very least, just be honest about it, you know? Just tell them, you know, hey, I'm pretty much rich. Otherwise, it just becomes kind of irresponsible. if not outright manipulative. Now, this probably wouldn't be fair if I didn't talk about myself. I make decent money from YouTube, by my standards at least, which may not be that high, and it pretty much all comes from Patreon. So I feel a real obligation to invest back into my content, to put out consistent content, etc., since my income basically entirely comes from people who choose to give me a portion of their own income because they like my content and want to see more of it. Or at least I hope that's why. So I try my best to work as often as possible and make sure that they get some good videos out of the deal in a reasonable time frame. And I think that's how any creator who primarily makes their money from like Patreon or Twitch subscribers, etc., should approach their work. We should not be some special class of privileged worker totally disconnected from reality who is above putting in the same hours as other workers, just because we happen to be lucky enough to gain an audience that is happy to support us. So just to let you all know, full disclosure, I've almost saved enough in the past year to pretty much totally upgrade everything that I have to professional level equipment: camera, lighting, microphones, audio interface, computer. I think I also want to get a real teleprompter as well. God, that'll help. I can stop doing cuts every 2 seconds maybe. All to help make my videos hopefully be as good as they possibly can be. I also hope to eventually be able to rent a bigger place so that I could like convert an entire bedroom into a studio, which would make everything way easier to do, as basically ever since I started making my videos, whenever I film, I've had to rearrange everything and take everything out of storage, put it back into storage because I just never really had the space. I also plan to start getting professional captions done on all of my videos in both English and Spanish once I'm making $2,000 a month on Patreon. And further in the future, I'd really like to hire an actor to, work with me in person and replace me as the one who actually appears in my videos, because I really don't like doing it and I'm really bad at it, which is kind of obvious, though that one is much more of a stretch goal. I'm some way off being able to hire help. So yeah, that's how I'm investing what I make back into my videos and how I'm going to keep doing it in the future. If you like what I make and want to support me making it, then feel free to become a patron. It of course helps me a ton and I'm really grateful for the support. But don't do it just because it's me. Do it because you like what I make, and apply that same principle to supporting any creator. And remember that you aren't doing anything special by watching or supporting politically themed content creators. If there is any actual point that you should take away from this video, it's that. So yeah, that's it for this rant. Go follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/badempanada. I guess I'll roll the Patreon credits now. I'll see you guys next time when hopefully I'll be making an actually worthwhile video, rather than, well, this kind of dumb YouTube rant. See ya! Thank you to my $25 plus patrons: Raul Vasquez, Forbes Beckham, Mischief and Fins, Potte, Niam Breslin, Brosnan, Jel Cribson, Jesse Hosick, Darcius B, Shub, Evan Carroll, A Big Mean Cat, Brandon Flowers, Dusty, Benny G, and my $10 plus patrons: Esfer Pierre-Louis, Christopher Strom, Melissa Gomez, Insurgente, Nico Del Sesto, Yasin, Roja, Gilles Alcoin, William Tomlinson, Cab the Bird Ranger, Chloe S. Engel, Crouton and Baguette, Mamushin, Jesse Zaleski, Christian Corniels, Michael Strauss, Morimer, Cincione Bresgal, Nick Hall, Violet Rain, Artemio Nelson, Jacob Pitts, Uminia Kresneti, Industrial Robot, JG, Jackie T, and Rivers. Thank you, see you next time.